Hello, I'm Chris Hartwell, and welcome to The Heartbeat, the place where I talk about just a few of the things that make this little guy tick. Today, I'm going to be talking about The Abominable Bride from BBC's Sherlock. Join me, won't you? So, per usual, I will be talking about a few of the positives from this week's episode, a few of the negatives, and wrapping up with what I'm looking forward to next year. Yes, 2017 on BBC's Sherlock. Benedict, Cumberbatch, and Martin Freeman are way too busy, though I suppose we can't catch them teaming up on Sherlock. We can see them in other franchises, such as the Hobbit trilogy, as Bilbo Baggins and Smaug the Dragon. Or, now that they're both in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Cumberbatch and Doctor Strange, and Freeman and Captain America Civil War, perhaps we can look forward to a team up there. But I am getting ahead of myself. We did just get a fun little holiday special of an episode, so let's focus on that now. Now, guys, I love the BBC Sherlock. I have found each of his mysteries to not only be deftly handled, but expertly modernized. Also, I think the visual style is cool, slick, and very quirky, as well as plays directly into what this show is about and the characters around which it revolves. And also, I love the mini movie-length style episodes, just in the fact that they allow each of those mysteries to breathe just a little bit more, as well as the characters to grow just a little more dynamically. And finally, and in my opinion, most importantly, I have loved the handling of the central relationship, that being between Sherlock Holmes and Dr. John Watson, which in my opinion is nothing short of perfection. And yes, I really do mean that. It's not that the relationship is just quippy, clever, charming, and heartwarming, all of which are awesome, but it's also extremely nuanced and at moments profoundly real. And it's that level of depth that showrunners Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss have yet to stop mining. And it's partially because I've enjoyed this show so much and found its strength so titanic that I have stepped aboard this most recent holiday special with some level of trepidation, if only because I know its showrunner, Stephen Moffat, who's also in charge of the BBC's Doctor Who, a show that, in my opinion anyways, has gone from entertaining to kind of dull to, at times, embarrassing. Though I haven't seen much of Capaldi's ears, so has the show swung back, guys? Let me know. Now, I get it. Doctor Who has been around for 36 seasons, and a consistent, repetitious formula is part of the reason for that. Now, there are exceptions to this, and Mr. Moffat has proven his brilliance on that show a few times, but my primary issue with it is the fact that he's constantly constructing these narratives that promise change. Permanent and meaningful change. And he does this by placing his characters in these life-altering, or would be in any other circumstance, life-altering conflicts, but then having them walk away no different. Not really, not in any lasting, significant way. And to be asked as a viewer to continually invest, really invest, like what you're watching on screen really matters, when it really doesn't, can get kind of exhausting. But what's more frustrating still is when Moffat does change things, his alterations almost always feel driven by whimsy versus story. And Moffat himself doesn't deny it. Recently he said, "It's a weird thing that happens with all television. You get better at making it. You get more expert and it gets slicker and glossier and duller. And you somehow lose something from Series 1's rawness. But if you keep making things different for no reason other than the sheer hell of it, you get that Series 1 energy back." Now, if this quote had come from anyone other than Moffat, I would be kind of encouraged by it, because without filmmakers bravely saying, okay, the original worked, now let's do something different with the sequel, we would have never gotten amazing films like Aliens, The Dark Knight, or The Godfather Part 2. So, did it work out? Did Moffat's mad decision to transport Sherlock and company to the 1890s pay off? For the most part, yes. First off, I really just enjoy the extra polish and budget, which are often found on a holiday special, really on display in the lighting, the set design, and the CG in this episode. I did properly feel like I was transported to the 1890s. The setting also allowed one of Sherlock's more supernatural tales to carry extra weight, since the idea of ghosts and the paranoia and fear that come along with them really does feel more plausible in a turn-of-the-century setting, which was actually one of my primary issues with the modernizing of Season 2's The Hounds of Baskerville. Also, I really enjoyed, though it did feel a little gimmicky at times, just the demodernizing of a lot of the visual gags that we've come accustomed to seeing on this iteration of Sherlock. That first flashback sequence, Holmes walking down the stairs, the waterfall and the painting, and the floating newspapers within Sherlock's mind. Also, I just thought the whole sexism theme was well laced throughout the piece and really kind of tied things together nicely, which not only challenged how Sherlock saw women, but also poked fun at Doyle's own usage of women in the original short stories. And though it wasn't really demonstrated until about halfway through this episode, I just love how Mary has so effortlessly become the world's least annoying third wheel. Her charisma and wit at times actually pushing Watson or Sherlock into that third place position. Now, guys, from here on out, my discussion will be rather spoilery, so you have been warned. With that said, though, I did enjoy the ultimate reveal reveal that this entire episode was a drug-induced journey into Sherlock's mind palace, which actually isn't unprecedented, having gone there for brief stints in episodes past. On this episode, though, I found it worked particularly well, and on multiple levels. One, it allowed for the deepest, most elaborately visualized journey into Sherlock's psyche to date. Because Sherlock is a man out of time, so of course his mind palace would look like the 1890s. Two, it really allowed the series to continue to include Moriarty in a very satisfying way, because ever since the end of last season, I was rather terrified that the writers were going to try and resurrect Sherlock's arch nemesis, an idea that on one hand I could find attractive. After all, Moriarty is to Sherlock as the Joker is to Batman, or Khan is to Kirk, really bringing the best and worst out of our hero, as well as acting as a brilliant foil. But man, oh man, you really do not need to look any further than the Marvel films to understand the downside of continually resurrecting characters. By coming back, not only is the power of Loki, Thor, Nick Fury, Bucky Barnes, and Phil Coulson's deaths significantly decreased, but as are these stakes in every subsequent entry of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because if we can just assume that every character who dies will return in a subsequent film or television series, there's really no reason to invest in the peril. Plus, on Sherlock, they had already endeavored the impossibly difficult task of justifying in a satisfying way how Sherlock had faked his own death. So I really wasn't, nor do I think I ever will be, ready for Moriarty to bodily rise from the dead. With that said, though, I was very pleased to have him return, kind of acting as that splinter in Sherlock's brain, or the virus in his hard drive, kind of just the voice of chaos and doubt, really a full manifestation of Sherlock's darker tendencies, pushing him to believe that he's not only above the law, but more dangerous still, that he's all alone. And three, if you're wanting to do an episode that focuses on Sherlock's use of narcotics, as well as further magnifies his view of the world and those that populate it, this is a really fun way to go about that. I was actually reflecting on the episode, wholeheartedly acknowledging that Sherlock would totally create a more compliant Watson, an asexual Hooper, and a gelatinous Mycroft. Which I will now use to segue into talking about a few of the elements that didn't work as well for me, because until it was revealed that this episode was taking place inside Sherlock's mind, none of those characterizations really worked all that well for me. So, for example, initially, I didn't really know how to invest in this episode, because as it started out, though the setting was different, most every story thread seemed to be continuing from where they left off at the end of season 3. Which was initially exciting, because of course I want the story that I love to continue to unfold, but the problem was so much of the interpersonal drama and conflicts really felt defined by this specific time, like Watson's relationship to Mary, or Molly's disguise, or Mycroft's over-the-top weight. And therefore the characters struggling through them and overcoming them doesn't end up actually feeling all that relevant to their actual journey. Also, on a show like this, there are, as I would describe them, interesting, truly impressive ways to remain clever. And there are also the cheaper ways to keep the audience guessing, which is how I would describe the continued yanking back and forth between the real world and Sherlock's mind. It did keep me guessing, but not in any genuinely clever way. Finally, there's always been a sense of one-upmanship as different directors have come on board this show, and I just felt like visually anyways, this director wasn't as consistently as inventive as past directors. To wrap things up though, about halfway through this episode, I realized the main thing it was failing to do was remind me why Sherlock and Watson needed one another. And that was so acute in my mind that I literally, silently anyway, started to chant, "Remind me, remind me." Because, again, my favorite aspect of this show is seeing these two men's need for the other, and by extension, man's universal need for the other. And so ultimately, I will deem this episode a success, because by the end, it had done that for me. In moments like where Sherlock is talking to an empty chair, or where Mary and Watson's relationship is challenged and strengthened by Sherlock, or where Sherlock's relationship with the world is challenged and strengthened by Watson, or where Watson pulls Sherlock back from the brink, from getting enveloped by the strangulation of Moriarty's lies, clothing him instead in truth, both literally and in literature. Which is why I most certainly will return in 2017 for the further adventures of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. John Watson. How will Sherlock and Mycroft's relationship continue to develop? Why does Mycroft have the name of Sherlock's dog, Redbeard, written in his diary? What is this secret organization that is carrying on Moriarty's work? Where will John and Mary's relationship go next? To all those unanswered questions and to many more, I say bring it. I would still love to know what you guys thought of this episode though, so please comment below. Let me know. Did you like it? Did you hate it? What elements worked for you? What elements didn't? Comment below and let me know. Also, please do subscribe. Along with reviewing films, I'm going to be reviewing Better Call Saul Season 2 coming up here quite soon, kicking off with a Season 1 recap, so please do subscribe and stay tuned for all of those things. But For now, I'm Chris Hartwell. This is The Heartbeat. Thank you for joining me.